Hi everyone, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This podcast is all about farmers markets, how to increase your market business success while providing people with fresh food. Farmers markets are essential. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a small farmer or food maker selling at farmers markets, you have found just the right podcast. This week we're chatting with Ashley Drakeford, organizer and market manager of the Capital Market, about bringing food access and equity to her community. I'm one of your hosts, Bridget Myers. I'm a longtime Farmers Market manager, Vendor 101 co-teacher, and education coordinator at Farmers Market Pros.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active Farmers Market manager, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and host of Intense, the Farmers Market Conference, and the Farmers Market Pros community.
And I'm Justine Marzoni-Mead, Tent Talk producer, marketing director for Farmers Market Pros, and logistics coordinator for Intense, the Farmers Market Conference 2022, coming up in March. So excited. Buy your tickets. They're available on our website.
That's right. Super early bird.
Cannot wait.
March 2022 in real life.
Yeah.
Yes.
So excited.
Woo.
Today's episode of Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is supported by Nutrition Incentive Hub, a coalition of partners from around the country supporting nutrition incentives and produce prescription projects. For information on programs available to markets in your area, visit nutritionincentivehub.org or click the logo on our resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Well, welcome back to Tent Talk, everyone. Today we are talking with Ashley Drakeford of the Capital Market in Capitol Heights, Maryland. A business development manager and community activist, Ashley is a sixth-generation resident of Prince George's County and is deeply committed to seeing her community thrive and spearheading equitable change through access to fresh and healthy food. At the Capital Market, Ashley coordinates the market experience and how it aligns with small businesses and farmers. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
We're so excited to have you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very excited to talk to you. So we can kind of just jump in here if you want to just tell us a little bit about your personal and business background.
Yeah, so like you said, I am a sixth generation resident of Prince George's County, right? And I always like to lead with that, especially when I'm talking about the capital market, because it really just kind of highlights my connection to the community and my passion. And so, when I'm talking about the capital market, it is deeply personal for me, right? And so knowing that I'm a sixth generation resident or kind of tracing my history back in Prince George's County is that we can trace, our family can trace our history back to enslaved members in Prince George's County, right? And so if there's a cool thing to come from that, the cool thing is that we can trace back our history to the actual plantation in the county where our family was from. That plantation also is an area outside of which, once my family members were no longer enslaved, they were farmers, right? And so they were farmers in Capitol Heights, the same place that we now host the Capital Market, right? So it's kind of like a full circle experience for us. And so it just kind of registers the commitment that we have to the community, the commitment that we have to honoring our ancestors and like preserving their legacy. And just like serving, like I said. So,
Ashley, is any of your family still farming?
So no, none of our family are still farmers, at least not on this side of our family. But so my sister and I are avid urban gardeners. And so we kind of like have like reclaimed that history and that legacy. And so among the other things that we do outside of our full-time job, I teach gardening classes at a couple community gardens. One of my most recent projects was called Dirt Don't Hurt. And so it was a gardening class for children. So we had kids there anywhere from 2 to about 8 or 10. And so it was really, really interesting. It was super exciting. It was very fun. We definitely got dirty. People's cherry tomatoes were picked and eaten right off the vine. So yeah, it was pretty cool. But outside of everything that I do for the market, I'm also a business development manager for a private sector business. So
Okay, yeah, because that was going to be my kind of next question. If you're working in another industry or if the capital market organization is like your full-time. So it sounds like you're doing a few things at once.
Yeah.
And you have your schedule down to the minute, right?
Exactly. So yes, I'm business development manager. So I work for a physical security firm. But my schedule down to a minute. So a couple years ago, I decided to go back to school and finish my bachelor's degree.
Because you have nothing else going on.
So much free time. Why not?
Exactly. And so it was this tool. One of my professors introduced me to the Passion Planner. Have you all seen that?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. It like saved my life. And then I just found like a digital copy of the Passion Planner that I put on my iPad. And so like I have like market stuff in one, business stuff in one, classes in one area. And I literally have to plan, I have to use my time very valuably. I'm like, okay, well, I can get a facial here. So
that is a valuable use of time.
Yeah, fit everything in. So how did you get started with the farmers market operations? Like what led you to start working for the capital markets?
Yeah. So believe it or not, so like I said, obviously, so family is at the core of the capital market, right? And so my younger cousin, he lives in Capitol Heights in the area that, we have the farmers market. And so I guess just to give you a little bit of background on the capital market, the market started because the community, Capitol Heights, lost its last grocery store in 2016, right? And so Capitol Heights borders Washington, D.C., which is right around Ward 7 and Ward 8 of DC, which are considered, we don't like to call them food deserts, obviously, but they, suffer from food inequities, right? And so that's already a problem. And so then you have Prince George's County, Maryland, and Capitol Heights, which is like right on the border of that. And so they lost their last grocery store. And so if you can envision this thing, I know sometimes when you're going into big cities, there are like, what do you call it? You go through like tolls and things like that. And it's a very distinctive line of where this city starts or where this state starts and ends. Well, in DC, it's not like that, right? You can literally be walking on one side of the street and it's Maryland and the other side is DC, right? And so me saying that Capitol Heights lost its last grocery store really means that people in parts of DC lost the only grocery store that they had access to as well, right? So obviously this is a big problem. My cousin is a young homeowner in this neighborhood. And so he links up with the Food Justice Coalition of 20743, right? And so the capital market actually started as Oak Crest Farmers Market in 2018. So my cousin links up with this organization and just probably, as I'm sure most families do, he's working through it and he's like, I need backup. So what does he do? He brings his older cousins in as his backup. Sometimes it's almost like I feel like we're like his guard dogs or what have you. He brings in, the heavy gunners when he's trying to get stuff done. And so that's how I became involved in the capital market, supporting my cousin, right? And now somehow I am running and managing it, and he's moved on to his next project. He still supports us, but he's like, I'm like, what in the world just happened?
It sounds like a classic foist situation.
Right. Kind of hook with you
He foisted it onto you.
Yes.
Exactly. So, that's how I got involved. And like I said, it's a family thing, right? Once you understand like our connection, my sister is involved as well. So it's really, it's a family thing.
Okay, so you work with your sister, Brittany, at the market and on other projects. What is that like working with your sister, and what are the roles that each of you do for the market?
Yeah, so I would say that working with my sister is much like being sisters in real life.
Yeah.
Right. And so I would say that being an older sister, that my sister exemplifies all the very parts of me, best parts of me. But she's also the person that, knows my buttons more than anyone else and can push them at any time if she wants to. But saying that, it's really cool because, obviously naturally growing up, everybody has like their roles in a family and everybody has their strong points, and you can really quickly identify, which things are good at or which things I can do or which things she can do. And even with my cousin, right? And so it's already this kind of natural team that I know that Ashley does these things. Brittany, I can rely on her for these things. And Kyle, which is my cousin, he can kind of step in there, right? So it does make it easier. And it's a sense of ownership that I feel like you might not get at a regular job, right? Because it's so family oriented. I know that at the end of the day, like they have my back no matter what, even if we butt heads and we need a tiebreaker sometimes.
Come on, Kyle, back in.
Exactly. Even if it works perfectly because now we do have a tiebreaker, right? So yeah, even if we might not be seeing eye to eye, it's always, we have each other's back. So that's the pretty cool part of working together.
Yeah, I've always kind of felt like that about family businesses, that you bring different strengths to the table because you all have your different roles in the family. And as a little sister who has worked with my big sister, I know what you're saying when you say she can push your buttons in just the right way.
Right,
but also there's like that support. And then at the end of the day, you know that this person isn't going to completely bail out on you and disappear. Right. Like, you know where this person lives. So there's a little bit of like,
and I'm going to tell mom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I would say one of the challenges is really, which we've been working better on, but really kind of creating boundaries, right? Because it's like our whole world can be the market, right? And so it's really like, hey, I don't want to talk about market stuff right now. Like we literally have to say that, like, I just called to talk to you. And somehow this conversation is drifting off about the capital market.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Kat and I have to make sure not to talk about market stuff at the dinner table when we're with the rest of our family who doesn't work with us. So it's a fine line to work. But I think it's a great thing to do. And farms and farmers markets are just so naturally family oriented.
So many of our vendors are family businesses.
Yeah. Exactly.
So many.
Yeah.
So are there certain things that you're responsible for and that Brittany's responsible for, or is it just more of an organic passing things back and forth?
Yeah, so typically I am responsible for the day-to-day activities and what happens at the market, right? And so I'm responsible for coordinating with the vendors, setting them up on the schedule, following up with them. I typically respond to most of like the emails to the direct businesses that we work with. And then on market days, I handle all like market operations, right? Brittany, she is more of, I would say, our strategic planner, right? And so she is more about creating partnerships with other organizations and really kind of looking at the market from a bird's eye view and where we hope to grow and how we, kind of pivot in certain areas. So yeah.
It sounds like a good partnership of one person like nitty gritty, one person kind of big picture.
Yeah, good division
that's great.
Of roles. Yep.
Cool. Well, let's talk nitty gritty stuff because that's what you do. So, the capital market. I was looking at your website, and it looks like you have two different actual markets, one on Friday and one on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And were those both launched at the same time, or did you start with one and then add in another one, or kind of how do those markets work in conjunction with each other?
Yeah, so that is a great question. So the capital market in Capitol Heights, so we started as the capital market of 20743, specifically addressing like the area that we talked about in Capitol Heights, right? Because their grocery store closed. But in Prince George's County, there are a number of healthy food priority zones, right? And as we started to work with other organizations and partner with other people, we identified another partner, which was Creative Suitland. And so they're in Suitland, Maryland, and it's an arts organization where they partner with local artists and children and, everyone to bring arts to their community, right? And so they just opened up their facility. And so they wanted to have a farmer's market as well, right? And so they created a space for us at Creative Suitland. So the capital market actually started in 2018. And this year we just launched our second market at Creative Suitland on Sundays. So it's pretty cool. And then it also helps too, because so last year in the midst of the pandemic and, just reading and learning about other farmers markets, we had a phenomenal year last year, especially with our market being on a Friday from 12 to 4, right? We had a great year. We had lots of people. We saw like a renewed interest in people wanting to know where their food came from, and then really people wanting to support small minority businesses, right? And people had the time, like they were working from home, and so they could come out to the market. But we knew that there were also a set of people that couldn't come because of the time that we operated on Fridays. And so Sunday just kind of opened up a new audience and other people that wanted to participate and support, but they were unable to. So
that's great. So it sounds like your markets are really, really serving the direct community that you're in. One of our markets is it attracts a lot of locals, but also it is kind of more of a touristy market. But who are you seeing shopping your market? Young or old, or working professionals, or who are those faces that are showing up week after week?
Yeah, so that is a really cool question. I would say that the identity of both of our markets, even though they're the capital market, the audiences can be very different, right? So our first market, believe it or not, is outside of a medical marijuana dispensary.
Okay.
All right.
So a lot of snack vendors.
Yes.
Exactly. The brownies go really fast market, and that is no lie. The brownies go really fast outside of that market, even though we don't sell any cannabis products at the farmers market. But so the audience of that market is very, I would say, a lot of health conscious people that are informed about, their health and products. We get a lot of business professionals and contractors, right? So it's off of a main road. So there are people that are like, contractors, it's close to a Home Depot, people that are, it's a really busy avenue, right? So we get more like business professionals, like I said, people that are very conscious about their health and really interested in learning more. They're coming specifically with a purpose. And then our market on Sundays is at Creative Suitland, which is an arts organization, like I mentioned. And so that one is really more family oriented, right? You get people that we do open mics on that on Sundays at that market. So they've dubbed that one Poetry and Produce, the arts organization, right? And so there's all sorts of activities that go on there. About a month ago, we did a community mural, and we had an artist from the community lead out the mural, and we let people kind of paint on the walls. He kind of sketched it out and designed it, and then people filled in, blank spaces. So that was cool. So that market is really almost like a cultural hub, it's not necessarily just a farmer's market. We have all types of activities that go on during the market that really kind of bring people of all ages out.
Wow, that sounds really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, so how many vendors do you have at each of your market? And do a lot of the vendors work at both of your markets? You have kind of like a pool that you pull from, and you're there both Friday or Sunday. And what is the balance of vendors there? Like how many farmers to hot food or prepared food or grocery items? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have typically about 3 farmers at each market, at least 3 farmers at each market, and that goes, I would say, anywhere between 3 to 5 farmers at each market, right? And so when I say farmer, I'm including produce, I'm including agricultural producers. Not agriculture, I'm including farmers that do like cattle, chicken. We have some people that have sustainably raised like fish. And then also we have some farmers that just do flowers. Right. So I'm including all of those. So we have about 3 to 5 at each market. And then we also have a lot of cottage food vendors, or a number of cottage food vendors. So people that do brownies. We have Miss Renee. She does brownies, and she is like a staple. We have 40 markets this season, and Miss Renee is probably at least 36 of them. Her product goes hot off the shelf. But then we also have people that do like baked breads and ciabatta and, breakfast rolls and things like that. So we have a good variety. We normally only have one food truck. And typically what we try to do, so I would say like one of the challenges of, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but one of the challenges of entering a market such as ours is that grocery stores don't want to be there, right? There's a reason why there isn't a grocery store that exists. And so we've had to be really creative and be very pointed about the vendors and farmers and businesses that we allow at the market, right? So it could really easily, like if we weren't as selective and we didn't have kind of like a scale of having vendors, it could very easily just turn out to be a flea market, right? But we have a mission. Our mission is to serve our community to make sure that our community has access to locally grown healthy food to support Black farmers and minority farmers. And so with that mission in mind, we're able to push back on vendors and other people and say, hey, sorry, we've kind of reached our max in terms of, people that might do shea butter or jewelry or things like that. Like we want those businesses to thrive, but like, we'll say, hey, we're only doing one candle vendor. Like we're not going to have 5 people at our market selling candles, right? So yeah, does that kind of answer your question?
Oh yeah, that's great. And so I love that because we talk about how curation of your market is so important. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of shoppers don't really think of that because they just assume the market magically appears right before they arrive. Yeah. But so much goes into that. So where are you finding your vendors, and specifically where are you finding your farmers? Because DC has a lot of kind of bigger farmers markets that might draw bigger farmers, or you're competing with some other really, really established farmers markets. So where are you finding your farmers? And yeah.
Yes. So I think that is another really good question. So we find our farmers by blood, sweat, and tears. But we have to so I'm in sales, so we have to do really hard work, right? And so that means that sometimes we have to do, like I mentioned, so in Suitland at Creative Suitland, there have been people in that neighborhood or organizations that have tried to do markets there before, and they didn't last, right? Because they didn't necessarily maybe have buy-in from the farmers or buy-in from the community. And so really kind of leading with our vision, but actually like hitting the streets and understanding we're a part of different organizations. So we're a part of Prince George's Food Equity Council, right? And so we've cultivated and created relationships with different organizations. Sometimes we go out because we know the community so well, we'll go out and say, okay, like over by my dad's house, I know that there is about, I think this one farmer, he owns about 150 acres of land that he subleases to smaller farmers, right? And so my sister and I literally go out there and talk to some of the farmers that are out there and to see if they're interested in coming to the capital market. So we do things like that. Like we really like shake our network to its core to help people understand about the market, to kind of educate them. And sometimes it's, people don't know, or they just need that extra boost of confidence and to say like, hey, you can do this, right? In terms of 804 Cattle Company, it really was just kind of like me learning and knowing more about my community. And so 804 Cattle Company is a family-owned pasture-raised cattle farm, and it's literally right down the street from me, and I had never heard of it before. And so I just reached out to her and told her about our vision and our mission. She's like, thank you so much. I was waiting for an opportunity to do something like this, but I just didn't have the time and I didn't know how to coordinate it. Right. And so it's literally just been about, like I said, blood, sweat, and tears, and like understanding our network and being involved and knowing our community and having the interest or the inspiration of getting to know more and learning more. So that's typically how we find our farmers and our vendors.
And you have sort of an organized operation of incubating businesses, right? You provide some education to new businesses, and do you help them find funding? Do you train them up on what kind of permits they need and such?
Absolutely. So I would say that, just kind of going back to our mission, I think that part of it, so how can I explain this? Ultimately, the capital market only is somewhat of a Band-Aid on a much larger systemic issue, right? And so as the market has grown and as we think about it strategically, the market can't, a market from, the growing season in Maryland is only but so long. It's completely different from a place like California, right? And so what we're doing is really re-envisioning how we see the food system in our community. And so it has started with the market, but it has really grown into, okay, well, how do we, because the grocery store doesn't want to be here, how do we re-envision the food structure and the food system in our community so that it works for us and that it serves us and so that we benefit from it, right? And so that goes to really looking at commercial kitchens, right? And so one of the things, some of the small farmers, right, just like me, I have a full-time job, I operate the market, and a lot of times it's the same thing with the farmers, right? They can't, like 804 Cattle Company that I mentioned, she is a veterinarian and she's a PhD. She works for the USDA, right? The cattle company is her family, is just her vision and something that she loves to do. It doesn't necessarily pay her bills. And so we have to re-envision, how can we help these farmers that really want to serve their community or really have that passion? How can we help connect them with the communities that need their products, right? And so commercial kitchen is one of the things they mentioned. So they can't come out to every market, right? But, or certain juice vendors, they might not be able to make every market, but they have a great product that people love. But they might not necessarily understand all the permitting that's behind there, right? And so we have like kind of set up structured workshops to connect with them, to help them understand, okay, this is what you need from the health department. You are not a cottage food business. What are next steps in, branding your product and getting it into Whole Foods or something like that? So we're just helping some of these smaller businesses learn about, we do workshops on the importance of insurance and really kind of connecting them to them needing insurance. And right, I mentioned like the difference between like a pop-up and a farmer's market, right? And so there are tons of people doing like pop-up events in our area. And so then when they come to the capital market, and they have a really great product and nobody has forced them to get insurance or think about what type of health permits they need, they're kind of like, nobody else makes us do that, right? Yeah. And we're like,
oh boy, we hear that story.
We feel you on that.
We feel you on that.
Okay. So it's not just me, I'm glad, right? Yeah. So they're like, nobody else makes us, do that. And I'm like, well, these are the reasons why you have to do it, right? And so last year, for better or worse, the health department really didn't come out as much, right? But this year, the health department has been out, I swear, I think they've been out to us like 3 times. And so now people understand why we force them to go get these permits and why we say you have to have specific insurance, right? Because at first it was just like, oh, you're making us do this. Like, no, we want you to help. Like when I talk about reimagining our food system, we are trying to help you grow, right? And so it's not just about like right now, like how can you turn this business into something that is legitimate, reliable, and sustainable, right?
That's so important. I mean, that's such a big mission and such a big part of what farmers markets can do to improve their communities is really incubating those small businesses, helping them move from an occasional hobby kind of pop-up thing to an actual business that can support them and their families. But it takes all those steps. And I think we have a Vendor 101 program that we do for folks just getting started. And we see so many really good managers that are doing this same kind of thing where they're really helping people figure out, and people are totally overwhelmed. I mean, most of that information's out there somewhere, but it's out there in 50 different places.
It's not centralized.
These little businesses have such a hard time wading through all of the stuff that's on a health department website to figure out what really applies to them at a farmer's market.
Especially because, too, when you're starting a business, it kind of does feel like everyone's trying to make a buck off of you. And there are a lot of predatory services out there that are like, literally your information when you open a business credit card is public information. And so you start to get all of these things in the mail, and then you're like, oh, I need this and I need this. And then when, it's nice, though, when you join a farmer's market, and if you have a relationship with your market manager, it's a little easier to kind of hear that you need something from your market manager because they're not trying to rip you off.
The market managers have the time to explain to you why you need this. This isn't just a rule. You need this because somebody can trip over your tent leg and sue you. And if you don't have insurance, all your work is for naught. It goes away. So it's really important what you're doing.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I would say that one of my favorite people that one of my favorite vendors that I've worked with this year, just in terms of helping his business grow, right? And so he does juices. He does fresh, cold pressed juices, right? And so he's a young guy. He's 23. And, he really, when he started at the market, he's like, oh, my mom handles everything. She's my manager, right? And I'm like, Raheem, you need to understand, this is your business. You need to understand how it works. And literally just in that development, I can see every market, he and we talk about something different that he can work on or something to grow his business. And whereas I might work with other people and I might mention things and they kind of just okay, yeah, whatever. Literally every time I make a suggestion to him. So one week it was okay, well, you need to work a little bit more on make sure your business cards are out here, right? So he has his business cards. And I'm like, okay, well, Raheem, next week we're going to work on your signage, right? And now he has a beautiful banner in front of his tent, right? And so each week, we've helped him find commercial kitchen space. And he's very moldable and willing to kind of grow in this area. And I just see his business, it's been thriving. And so it's just I sit back and I'm so proud of how his business is growing in just a very short amount of time. And it wasn't that, he's willing to do it, but to your point, Kat, he just didn't know where to go. Right. And so he didn't know which resources. And I'm just okay, go here. They can print your signage or, do that. And once I send it to him, he takes care of it, very quickly. So it's really
need direction. It's
it's
the best. And isn't it, I mean, when you talk about that guy, you can see that you're obviously proud of how he's grown and things. That's one of the most rewarding things, I think, for a farmer's market manager is seeing a small farmer or a small business start out and struggling and then grow into an actual enterprise that supports people.
Absolutely, for sure.
So you do one other thing that's really interesting. Well, you probably do 1,000 things that are really interesting that we don't even know about because you sound like you have a very full schedule. But I know that the Capital Market has a produce buyback program, and I'm really interested in hearing how this works. How did the program get started, and how does it work? Who funds the purchase of the produce, and then where does it go from there?
Yeah. So just going back to, I mentioned that grocery stores don't necessarily want to open up in our neighborhood, right? And I think somebody else mentioned, a lot of times we're competing with some of these big, beautiful, well-established farmers markets in this area, right? Because I used to shop at some of them also. And so obviously we all know that farming is something that's very labor intensive and, it can be costly, right? And so while there may be people that kind of are farmers that believe in our mission and they support it, they still have to make money, right? And so from that idea, the buyback program was created. And we actually started last year. And that was one of our, that was pretty much, it's our incentive program to attract farmers to our market. We understand that you're taking a chance on us. And it's pretty much like we're giving them a guarantee of being here, right? And so we started last year with one partner. And so we work with Shabbat Ministries. It's a nonprofit of a church. And so what they do is they each week they give us a budget of what they're willing to spend on produce at the market, right? And so Shabbat Ministries, they are this huge nonprofit organization, and they probably, handle tens of thousands of dollars worth of produce and other items every week. And they probably have hundreds, or if not thousands of people that come through their doors. But what they do with the buyback program is they target like a small group of seniors. So they may have like one residential senior community. And so what we do is we buy back, given the budget, right? This year, we now have 2 partners in the buyback, and we actually got grant funding for our buyback program. So that's really cool. And so they give us a budget at the beginning of the market that they're willing to kind of stick through for the entire season. And so at the end of the market, we buy back produce at cost from the farmers, right? And so, what they don't sell, sometimes they sell out. And so we don't have to worry about it. But what they don't sell, we buy back from them. And then we give it to our community partners for them to distribute to, like I said, seniors or other smaller groups. So it's turned out pretty cool.
That's such a valuable program on so many levels, because for one thing, you're making sure that the farmers do get some income on their produce. When you say you're buying it at cost, what do you mean? Do the farmers have to do a significant discount from what they'd charge at retail?
No, they don't do it. They don't do it.
Okay, so when you say a cost, it's at the cost they're charging for it, at their price. Okay, so that's amazing. That's wonderful, because there's so many farmers, I think, and market managers for that matter, that want to help in places where food apartheid exists and those kind of communities, but at the same time, they can't figure out how to do that because they're not in a position to be philanthropists. The farmers are often sort of poverty level folks themselves, just making it, so they can't give it away. But finding those folks that do have a budget for it and connecting those two can be a great way to get food to people that normally wouldn't get that healthy food. And what happens too, I think a long-term effect of that kind of program is that those folks that normally couldn't go to the farmers markets and buy that fresh produce, that may be a temporary situation for them. They may be having a rough time, but at some point that's going to turn around. In the meantime, you've gotten them hooked on that flavor of fresh produce, which we all know is so different than buying grocery store produce, that when they do get to the point where they have a better grocery budget, they're in the habit at this point of getting that really fresh tasting food direct from the farmers, and they will come back as a regular shopper. And that's the way you really build a system.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been, the buyback program has really incentivized farmers. And it's been a really cool thing to do. And even with like I said, last year we had one partner to do the buyback. This year so now we have 2 partners, and then we also have grant funding for that as well. So,
and Ashley, is Capital Market a 501c? Are you a nonprofit organization?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're eligible for grants, and I would think there'd be some really good grant funding out there for you, and a lot of partners like healthcare organizations and things that would be interested in contributing to this.
Absolutely, for sure. So and so this year we're working with like our county council. So they did some grant funding for our buyback program. And then also our market, in addition to the buyback program, our market does Maryland Market Money, which I heard you mention like nutrition incentives. And so essentially you get that, the extra, once, somebody uses their SNAP or WIC, they get extra nutrition, extra dollars to spend at the market. And that has been phenomenal. So I mentioned like 804 Cattle Company, right? And so they were just so happy that they're able to connect with people using nutrition benefits, right? Because oftentimes those things are, it kind of prices them out of specific markets, but they want to connect. And when they made their first like SNAP sale, the dad of the farm, he comes over to me. He's like, you have made my day. Like, I am just so happy, like, that we are able to do this, So
they're achieving some success and also giving to their community. It's just such a win-win for so many people.
Yeah, for sure.
I would think that actually would give you some leverage to kind of get out to farmers that are at other kinds of markets in maybe more wealthier communities and drag them on over. If you're going to buy everything that they have, that's a pretty good option for them. And you're also, you're making strides in terms of climate change, because food waste is one of the biggest contributors to that. When you throw away a head of lettuce, you're throwing away a bunch of water, and we're all short of water. You're throwing away, a carbon sink. So you're achieving so much on so many levels. I would think that would give you a spot to, and I can tell that you're the kind of person that can persuade people. I would think that this is going to give you a spot to get out to some of those other farmers markets and say, hey, I know you're here on Saturday. How about coming over on Sunday, where we're going to buy you out at the end of the day, and you're not going to have any waste.
Yeah, no, and you know what? We have started to do that, and we have, essentially that's how we've grown to have that second market, right? Because people understand, like, they're going to make money. They're going to serve the community, and so it's like you said, it's been a win-win, so we're growing. We have people that are now trying to bring the capital market all over the place. And I'm like, okay, my bandwidth.
Yeah. Watch those boundaries.
Exactly. So yeah, no, it's awesome to see. And it's great to see how it's thriving and how we connect with the community members. I mean, the vendors, it is like a family experience, we're all really close. So I think I was listening to one of your tent talks and I was like, maybe I need to create more boundaries, because it is kind of hard when I have to enforce the rules,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we did have an episode about not being Facebook friends with people.
Yeah, it's a fine line. It's a fine line, because you want to nurture people, and you are kind of all part of one big family at the markets. And at the same time, you're gonna have to be the mean mom sometimes and make people play by the rules. So you just can't take it personal. You gotta, you're not doing it to limit anybody. You're doing it to keep them safe, both them and the shoppers. You're doing it to help them advance their business.
Absolutely, for sure.
And it sounds to me like you're doing a great job of it.
Yes.
I appreciate that. For sure.
All right.
Are we good?
I think we're good.
We've heard some really
I
good
know
things about
we
the
at the beginning you're like, I have this many minutes for everything. So you want to respect your time, because we could talk your ear off for hours.
Respecting our boundaries.
I did all my schoolwork for today. So.
Good job.
Good. Get that stuff done first. Awesome. Yeah, well, it sounds like your markets and your program is going so well. I think we're going to keep an eye on that. And the produce buyback program sounds really interesting. I'm excited to talk to other managers about if they have programs like that, and just kind of expanding that possibility to other managers that are operating markets, because it's just such a great incentive for farmers, and also just a key element to keeping small farmers around and keeping communities well fed with healthy food. So
actually, your markets are open through the end of October. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm going to be back east in a little bit, and I may just pop in and see y'all. Are you on site at the markets?
Yes.
Yes?
I am
at
every single market except for the one this weekend. But yeah, I'm there all the time.
All right. Awesome. I might just see you soon. Thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for talking with us today, Ashley.
Absolutely. It was great. Nice to meet you all.
You too. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Awesome. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Tent Talk today, and big thanks to the National Nutrition Incentive Hub for supporting farmers markets and offering SNAP, EBT, and other programs. Find more information by clicking their logo on our resource page at farmersmarketpros.com.
Farmers markets are all about connection, and all of us, operators, farmers, and vendors, keep learning. Join us at the 6th Annual Intense the Farmers Market Conference in San Diego, California on March 7th, 8th, and 9th, 2022 to grow your market and your community. Connect over in our private Facebook group, the Farmers Market Pros community, with active farmers market managers and participants. You can also message us on Instagram at Farmers Market Pros, or email us at connect@farmersmarketpros.com. To further your farmers market education, check out our online courses at farmersmarketpros.com. Thanks so much for listening to Tent Talk. Please leave us a review wherever you access your podcasts, and be sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast, is proudly produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Thank you so much for listening today, and we'll have another great episode next week. Tune in.